Welcome back to Dubbzi Bricks for another episode of Building the Tantive in Lego. And first of all, I have to say a massive thank you to Teagles216. Last month, $50 donation to the channel towards the Tantive build. Thank you so much, Teagles. I was absolutely blown away when I read that message. It was so generous of you. It's going to help so much towards this build. You are an absolute superstar. And also thank you to the members, Alex B, Blackout, 501st Clone, Lucy Mien, Apollo Productions and Brickery Do Builds Lego. Again, your monthly subscription helps so much with the purchase of the bricks for these builds, so I really do appreciate your continued support. And also the people that purchase stuff from Gamer Bricks, obviously I get a small kickback every time you place an order. So if you do buy lights, if you could go via the affiliate link, it really does help the channel. So yeah, thank you everybody, and all the people that watch the video, leave a comment, like, subscribe, everything, all of that good stuff. It really does help me, so thank you so much, one and all. Anyway, on to the build here. Last month we worked on this section just here, which is the third section of the ship, and originally I was going to carry on working on this part. However, I've decided I'm going to get the skeleton made for the front part. I have no idea where I'm going to put it because these three sections are pretty much taking up the whole table. However, the plan is I'm going to build the skeleton of it to start with, then we're going to work on the actual shell of it as well, the skin and the interior details on there. And what I'm going to do is once I've built the front end, we're just going to work our way back, doing all of the details throughout the ship. So the last part of the vessel that will be completed will be the engines down the back there, which is probably a good thing as we need to buy all of those curved slopes to get those nice, smooth, finished engines done. So without further ado, let's get the bricks out and let's get started. And here we have the final display stand for the mock, and it's the same technique as we've used on the previous section. However, we've now got a part coming out the front here. Reason for that is there's the big cylinder part on the front of the ship, which is going to weigh a lot, and we don't want it tipping forward. So hopefully that's going to do the trick nicely. If needs be, I can always extend on it. It's a very simple thing to amend. We've also had to put some support beams here to stop it wanting to lean forward when you've got all that weight on the front of the ship, and I'm just hoping that one display stand is going to be enough for that front section. Anyway, without further ado, let's start making the final part of the fuselage, and I'll check back in once I've done so. And here we have the final section of the fuselage, and I can't wait to add this to the length of the others just to see how big this ship is actually going to look once it's all completed. Now it will be a little further forward as we've got the skin to add onto the front here, and there's also part of the skin which adds a bit more to the width on both sides as well. Now what I need to do now is attach the display stand to this part of the fuselage, try and get it so that the balance is as good as possible on here. I don't want to have it too far forward and too far back, so just got to work out where it's going to look best on there. And I just hope that one display stand is going to be sufficient for this due to the weight that we're going to have on the front here. I might have to put some beams going down at a 45-degree angle just to help keep it all nicely in position. But anyway, let's attach the two sections together and then we can see how it's looking. And here we have the two sections all clipped together, and I'm a little bit concerned about the strength that it's going to have in there. It's only connected by a couple of Technic pins on this part here, and a 6x8 Technic brick is all it's connected to. Once we've got all the weight on there, I'm just a little bit concerned there's not going to be enough strength in there. So what I'm considering doing at the moment is just taking the top section off of the display stand, building another frame section just below it by about 5 bricks, and then build that into the stand as well. Then hopefully there's going to be a little bit more strength and stability, the weight distributed more across it. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to do the trick or not, but it's certainly worth giving it a try. And there we have the amendments, and it seems to have added a fair bit more strength into the build there. So fingers crossed that will do the job. Now what we're going to do is turn my attention to how the corridor is going to be going along here, and also the cockpit. So I'm just going to watch the end of Rogue One just to see that very final scene where you see Princess Leia on the bridge of the ship. That give me an idea of what it needs to look like. And I've just finished watching the end of Rogue One, and I'm even more confused now than I was before, which isn't hard. I just can't work out how the corridors are supposed to go in this build. I did mention a few episodes back that nothing seems to make sense. If you look at the cross section, if you look at the film where corridors are supposed to go, realistically, size-wise, they just would not fit. And again, this is another example of it. If you look at this scene on screen now, you've got the corridor going along, and then they turn right into the cockpit. So on the model, the corridor will be going along here and then turning right. If you look at the other side of the doorway here, it's just another room. So I'm not really sure on how it's all supposed to go. If you look at the cross-section image, it's a little bit different to what you see on the screen. So there is no continuity on there from what I can tell. Apologies if I'm wrong. So I'm just going to use creative license and just do the best interior I can for this ship, and then that's what it's going to be. So we're going to have a corridor coming all the way along here. It will go into the cockpit, and then I'll possibly put a couple of different rooms down the end there of some description. So whether or not I make one like Leia's office or a captain's quarters or something like that, I'm not sure. I'm sure there are supposed to be on different floors within the front section. But again, I'm just going to do what I think looks good. The main thing for me with this vessel is to have it looking as good as possible from the outside and to have some sort of interior. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to get a couple of the corridor sets and start building the corridors along there. And here we have the start of the corridor, and I think I'm going to need to buy some more of these corridor sets as I'm running out of pieces very, very quickly. And I've probably got enough to get 3/4 of this section done here, but I've got a load more to do within the rest of the Tantive, and the set does retire at the end of the year, so I am going to need to try and grab a few more before it retires if I can find them on a good price, which I'm sure I'll be able to do so. Now I've put a doorway in just here, which doesn't make much sense if you're thinking about the logistics of the ship, because we're going to have the skin around the outside of that, but you might say that it's just an access port to something that's going on behind that wall there. So I'm happy to leave that in there, even if it's not accurate or doesn't look practical. I think it just gives a little bit more. Now you'll see here that I've put the plates 2 plates high here, and then it's straight onto the Technic bricks here. What I'm going to do is put some tiles along this section here and then build a passageway like this, which is removable, and that'll be attached to the skin of the ship. Now I'm not sure how much of it I'm going to have removable just yet, so that's why it's looking like it is at the moment. So that bit will be left clear for the time being. The rest of this will all be tiled off. Now one thing I am going to do down this end next is try and get the design around the doorway looking a little bit more accurate to what's shown within this Lego set. So I've got some of the Technic tubing, which I think will work perfectly in that section. So I'm just going to have a little bit of an experiment with that and see if I can come up with a design that I'm happy with. And here we have the first attempt at the doorway, and I'm not 100% happy with it. There are a couple of parts I think don't look very good, so I'm just going to experiment a little bit more with it. If I don't have any luck, then I'll just go over to this design here. I did look at the corridors in the doorway, sorry, in the Skywalker Saga Tantive IV, and I could order in the pieces to do the same design as that. However, again, I'm not sure whether or not it's going to look right, but we'll carry on experimenting and see if we can come up with something a little bit better. And a little bit more progress has been made on this corridor just here, and I've decided to put a door actually in at the end there rather than have the corridor carry on through. And the reason for that is I'm going to have some structural part down here further on, and it means that the corridor's not going to be able to go there anyway, just so I can keep the build all together. So what the idea is just to have this as another cutaway section so you can see inside the ship. We've plated off the cockpit area just here, and I'm going to have a doorway where these 2 tiles are. However, before I start building on the cockpit, I need to work out how I'm going to be doing the shell of it, the skin of the vessel. It needs to come out like a cone, and at the moment I'm really struggling with how I'm going to go about getting the exact shape and size that I need to do so. So I'm going to carry on experimenting, and fingers crossed we'll come up with a solution. And I've spent hours trying to come up with techniques for this cockpit area here, the shell, and I failed. This looks terrible. And although I'm happy with the circular shape there, that looks good, I don't like these wedge plates on there. Too many studs exposed. It's going to be very hard to cover those all over. So I'm thinking I might have to try and come up with a brick built circle and then go from there. With these sections here, and this is a very similar technique to what we've done on the engines, it just doesn't work on here. It's too bumpy, so this bit's a little bit higher than those. It looks more like a flower to me than a circle. It just bumps around too much. So I'm going to be scrapping that idea and trying to find another solution. Now, last year I went to Brictionary in Dublin and I saw this barrel, and here's an image on screen, and this in effect is the sort of shape that we're looking for with the cockpit area. So I'm going to have a good look at this and try and work out exactly how I can go about implementing it onto the build here. I want to have it so that there's removable sections to it, which should be achievable, but I think this might be the best way forward. Anyway, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move this section of the Tantive over to the main table where the other sections are, line them all up and just see how big the Tantive has actually got. And there we have it on the table, and it doesn't even fit. It's overhanging on the front here. I've actually had to clip these two sections together just in case it toppled over, but it really is starting to hit home as to how big this vessel is going to be once it's all completed. And yeah, it's a long way to go. A lot of bricks need to be purchased and a lot of fun to be had and a lot of frustration, I'm sure, to get to that end result. Now, a couple of these parts do need to be amended, so it will be changing slightly. I think this bit here, for example, is a little bit too long, and it also needs to be lowered, so things won't look proportionally correct at the moment, but they will do by the time we've finished with it. But yeah, it's really nice to see it all together like this, and it's also quite scary in a way as well to see how much more work there is to go on this behemoth of a build. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the Tantive in Lego, if you could share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for hopping on by, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.